Influencers, inspiration, and Instagram. This is Earned by Tribe Dynamics. Here's Conor Begley.
Welcome to Earned, everybody. Excited to have you here today. Today, I am pumped because we have the one of the big dogs in the beauty industry. So we've got the CMO of Ulta Beauty here, Shelley Haus, which I think has been one of the most transformational companies in the industry over the last 10 years. I've really been involved in the last 8, but I think even in the last 8, it's been really, really cool to witness what you guys have done during that time period. So welcome to the show, Shelley.
Thank you, Conor. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for those kind words. Definitely feels transformative, so we'll get into that.
I can tell you, when we started this podcast, I didn't think that you'd be coming on the show. So I am really excited that we've been able to step our game up and get folks like yourself.
Yeah, you've had a lot of great people, so I'm excited to be part of the show and part of your crew.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to get you in on the clubhouse on Fridays. You have to come say hello. And I think you are the first retailer, which is exciting.
Awesome. So, retail is a fun business. We're the closest to the consumer. So it's
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, let's start off with some current topics. So Dave, your boss, is now the CEO of Ulta, which has to be really exciting. I mean, it never hurts to have your boss become the CEO of the company, I would have to imagine. What do you think makes him a good fit for this role? I don't think this decision was made overnight. It seems like this has been groomed for a while. But what do you think makes him, why do you think they chose him for that role?
Well, this is a very thoughtful and careful succession plan of Ulta Beauty. Mary, the board, have worked closely together over the 8 years that she's been here to always think about what succession looks like. We wish that Mary could stay forever, but that's just not reality. So excited that she is elevated to chairman of the board and is going to stay really close to the business. Dave is an amazing fit for this role. He is such a people-based leader, which is, very, very much the legacy that Mary leaves. He's an incredible team builder, and he has incredible business acumen and focus on the future. So I feel like all of those things are the things that analysts see in him, that the beauty industry sees in him, that Mary sees in him, that the board sees in him. And personally, I love working with and for Dave. It's an incredible partnership. And I've known him for over 15 years now, way before Ulta Beauty. And Dave is one of the reasons that I came to Ulta Beauty. So that's how much I look up to him and respect him, and it just is what makes me really excited about this next chapter, and it really being a seamless transition because of our amazing executive team, and I couldn't be more proud to be a part of it.
It's funny. I give when I'm talking to people that just joined the company or that are earlier in their careers, one of the pieces of advice I give them is, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so being able to, bring a relationship that you've built over 15 years to where it is today is just so cool. Where did you guys start working together? This has to be before GFK, before Kellogg's. When was this?
It was at PepsiCo. We worked on the Quaker business together. So yeah, what a long-term relationship affords you is a great amount of trust and respect and understanding each other. And I think we are great complements for each other as we think about the business in many similar ways, but we think about the business in many different ways. So, it's a unique situation to have such a long-term relationship. And it's, the same thing with Mary and Dave and why there's such trust there. They've now worked together at 3 different companies over the course of their careers. So that, again, that kind of like trust, respect, understanding of each other. And, Mary talks about this all the time, like bringing out the best in each other. And that's what you hope for, in a great relationship with your boss and with your peers and really what we've built at Ulta Beauty.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like we could spend the entire show talking about the kind of job that Mary's done over the last 8 years, but I do want to have today be focused on you because that is why people are here. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. So you went from, breakfast cereal to beauty. What drew you outside of Dave? What drew you to Ulta Beauty and to the category?
Yeah, I mean, Dave and Mary were big reasons because I felt like they were about to do something special. They hadn't been there for very long, and they were, both of them really believe in the power of brand building and the power of marketing. And to have a CEO who believes in that and wants to create that in the company is such a great opportunity. And I looked at the brand and the company as kind of, what I like to call wet sand. It's like moldable. It had a perception in people's heads, although we were still only in the like mid 70 range, even in aided awareness. So a lot of room for growth. And I felt like a lot of room to be able to craft something and create something. And, the point of from breakfast cereals to beauty is a really big one. I loved being in, cookies, crackers, snacks, and cereals for a lot of my career. I felt like it was a very engaged category. And, we were at Quaker, we were in the health space. So that was really interesting and fun. But there's nothing like beauty. Beauty is so highly personal, so highly engaged. It creates connection. It creates sense of self-expression. Like I just saw it as so ripe for doing something really special, kind of beyond the brands that we carry, really creating, the story of Ulta Beauty. So that's to me kind of in a nutshell, like what the leaders wanted to create and build. And then the idea of being able to do something in a really special category. And I'm really a builder and a creator. So I looked at that as kind of an unheard of opportunity in marketing. You go to a lot of big brands, and I'd worked on a lot of them, and you can steer the ship like this much. Like you're like, okay, I can take it a little bit like this and like that. And I did get to do a lot of, big things like, shifting Quaker from only being about heart health to that, but so much more when you think about energy and fueling. So you can do some of those things on kind of big iconic brands, but building something kind of from the ground up was pretty amazing. And then building the team too. When I started, there hadn't the role that I took as at the time VP of brand marketing didn't exist. And it was kind of, Dave pulling a couple of the pieces together of the different parts of the team that existed in different areas of the business and kind of saying, here, I really want us to make something of this. And I'm just so incredibly proud of the teams that we built, the leaders that we've built, the prowess that we've built in marketing. And I really, I believe that we are world-class marketers now. And that, that's part of the legacy that Mary leaves and something that I'm particularly proud of.
For sure. Well, you mentioned unaided awareness at the beginning or like during that response. And I think that for me, I love that you come from a background of brand marketing. I'm a huge brand marketing fan. Actually, frankly, more than a performance marketing fan. I think performance marketing can measure the wrong things and can become really, anyways. So for you, I don't think awareness is actually the problem for Ulta anymore, right? I think that most people, at least in the United States, are fairly aware of the brand. So what are the KPIs that you focus on now? Like what are, for the next 3 to 5 years, what are the big things that you guys are driving towards?
I think it's a great question, and you have a lot in that question that
yeah, there's a bunch of things in there. Sorry, I know. In fact, it's my biggest flaw as a podcast host. I'm like, I just have 3 questions at you, but yeah, go ahead.
I love it though. I have
go for it.
So so many opinions on everything that you just said. But we'll start with the idea of brand building, and just rewind to 6 years ago, and we were building the proposition for people because we needed to drive that that top of mind and aided awareness. And we started with a really simple proposition: all things beauty, all in one place. And we meant it to be very functional at the time, to really just say, this is what Ulta Beauty is, in case you don't know, which many of you apparently don't. And so that was, an era of really solidifying internally, even that we think about ourselves as a brand. We think about our personality as a person, fresh, fun, and real. We, completely rethought the identity of the brand and the sub-brands, starting to look at it like a classic brand architecture of having a master brand and then having Ulta Beauty Collection is a sub-brand. Ultimate Rewards is a sub-brand. The salon at Ulta Beauty is a sub-brand, and all of these should work together as a family, right? This is just like classic foundational brand building. So we knew though that what we wanted to do was shift gears once we started to really solidify that. So at the point that we started to see our aided awareness and top of mind awareness really taking off. In fact, we've delivered a 16-point increase in both over the past 5 years. Then we were able to really shift into something that was the emotional connection. Okay, so now we're moving into let's take this industry that's ripe for something really, really special and craft our brand into something really, really meaningful and purposeful. And so we spent about a year, this was in the very early days, about a year, really understanding the different territories that we could go into and how we might articulate those and bring those to life. We worked with both consumers that are Ulta Beauty consumers and non, of course.
Yeah, totally.
And then also our associates. And that was really, really important to me that we get the associates involved, not just to bring them along, but because they had true impact on where we were going to be going from a brand, because many of them, thousands and thousands of them in the stores every day, are the people that live our brand. They are the people that bring the human connection and the brand and the purpose to life. And so out of all of that was born our true north. And it's really not just a comms true north, it's a company true north. The idea that we bring out the possibilities that lie within every person by using the powers of beauty. That's really what we've been bringing to life in the last 3 years. So that's been pretty awesome. So it goes back to your point of like, what do we measure and what's important? Certainly performance marketing is important. And driving that through data and understanding and optimization. The big picture too, about what we build as a brand and about the attributes that we're growing when you think about leader in beauty, trusted, meaningful. And the other one I'm going to talk about for a second is integrity. And, we talked about Mary and Dave and the executive team and how we operate internally. And we hope to be able to express that externally with everything we do with our brand purpose platform. And the thing that I think is so cool about 2020 is that we actually increased the brand attribute of integrity by 8 points in one year, in about a 6-month period. That just shows that it matters. How we go to market matters. How we treat people internally matters. And people are watching, and it means something to them. So I think that's pretty cool. And those types of attributes are going to be what are incredibly important to us moving forward. Consumers, like I said, are watching. They expect more of brands. 2020 just exacerbated that tenfold. And we believe that we are a brand with our own high standards, and we intend to shape the way the world sees beauty. And I think that matters to people.
See, now I have like 4 questions coming out of that response. I want to talk about the pandemic. I want to talk about associates. I want to talk about, there's a bunch of stuff there. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do first. Let's talk about associates a little bit, right? So I think that for me, one of the stories that stood out, right? Like I would be one of those people that would probably have gone integrity up a little bit in terms of my response. I just remember during the pandemic, you guys invested pretty heavily in keeping the team on and trying to help them navigate through this because, of course, if we were to lose our jobs, it would be terrible, but it's not the same as somebody who's just getting started in their career. So talk to me about how you work with them to help shape the brand vision, because I think that is a big differentiating factor for you guys as a retailer versus, say, I won't mention any names, but versus more traditional mass retailers. So talk to me about how you work with them, how you train them, how you hire them. I'd love to think about that more.
Yeah. Well, I am really proud. I'll start with the pandemic. I mean, it's ironic, right, that we're sitting here exactly 1 year ago.
Super weird.
Today
Super weird.
was our kind of first day at home. And I'm just so proud of how our teams have connected and cared for each other over the past year. I honestly think it is because of the work that we've done to grow the teams and grow relationships and create that trust across teams and with our external agencies as well. It was the linchpin to us being able to, not only operate in those crazy few months of closing stores and figuring out how to be a 100% e-com business, which I'll circle back to, but also being able to do this for a year now. Yep. I tell my teams all the time how proud I am of how they've navigated this together. But circling back to the 1 year ago, it was March 19th. So we'll hit this anniversary in a couple days. March 19th when we decided to close stores, which was incredibly difficult. And at that time, we thought it was only going to be for 2 or 3 weeks. And it ended up being months. And
I have some very damning text messages where I'm like, this thing's going to wrap up like by April, June, anyways, it's just crazy to think about. Anyways, keep going.
I mean, I just said to my team this morning, if anyone would have told you that we'd be doing this a year later, last year, what would you would have been like, you're crazy. That's not even a reality. It's wild. But I'm really, to your point of like how we handled even the discussions with employees, and then ultimately we did have to furlough thousands and thousands of people. But again, I'm so proud of how our teams handled that. And that's a reflection of our team caring. It's a reflection of Mary, Dave, and then Keisha Steelman, who is our Chief Store Operations Officer, who in June is going to become our COO. And she and her team are just exceptional, and they always put people at the center of everything we do. It's another thing that is truly Mary's legacy. And I think 2020 was a showcase of that. And back to the thought of the brand and how we bring the brand to life. Keisha has been an incredible partner to me since the early days of defining how we want to bring the brand to life. In fact, like sitting behind me is our brand book, #1 from our first generation of branding. And Keisha worked so closely with me to bring it to life at our general managers conference. That was truly the unveiling. We made that the centerpiece of unveiling the brand and where we were headed and the identity, because the general managers are the linchpin to everything and how we express ourselves to the world. So that partnership between Keisha and me in bringing this to life and really infusing it into our 40,000 plus associates across the country has been really key. And those general managers do a great job infusing that into their teams that are in the stores. And, just circling back to the idea that they loved this purpose, because that is what they feel like they're doing every day in the stores. They're bringing out people's possibilities. And when we launched the brand platform, that's when the stories started coming out too. Stories of, a salon associate spending 8 hours, unraveling the hair of someone who had been in deep depression and couldn't get out of bed. Those, like, that chokes me up. Those are the stories that meaningfully bring our brand purpose to life.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think about functionally how many people touch the company on like a daily basis or on an annualized basis. I mean, it's tens of millions, 100 million plus. And each one of those people is interacting because they want to interact with the brand, not because they have to typically. So that's super cool. Well, you talked a little bit about, different teams you interacted with there. For those that want to be a CMO, right? The people that aspire to be in the role that you're in today, I'd love for them to understand a little bit more just about how you spend your day. Like from a day-to-day perspective, who are the teams that you interact with? What are the key initiatives you think about on a quarterly, annual, weekly basis? Would love to hear about that part of your life. And personally, I'm curious too. Like I have no idea how you spend your day. I want to know.
Well, talking to people like you, Conor, is
it's just all podcasts, right? It's just one after another after another. Just one giant podcast, and I have a meeting here and there, and
podcast.
Everybody else does the work, and I just kind of watch, and that's kind of what it is, right? That's what happens when you get to the top.
That would be really cool. Maybe in the next chapter in my career, that'll be.
That's retirement, right? That's when you join boards, and you just kind of watch other people. You're like, ooh, you had a really bad quarter. You need to get better. You should do a better job next time.
Exactly. Yeah, but here's how I think about my job, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how I spend my days. I'm here to set a vision for the team and always be looking toward the future, and even in 2020, as deep as I had to get into the day-to-day management of the business, opening stores, closing stores, standing up curbside, it was wild. We had a layer of work that we were still doing that's, pointing us to the future. So really working on where do we need to go in the future. And that's both from a strategy standpoint as well as a capabilities, org structure, how the teams are going to work, that is more important than ever before, because we thought things were changing fast before 2020. Wow.
I mean, you had a black swan event, right? These just don't happen very often in life. And so it's such a dramatic, and especially as somebody who has such a big physical footprint, like it's just turned upside down. But keep going. Sorry.
I mean, it's seismic, and I believe that things will keep changing at this pace now forevermore. And so the idea of this, constant evolution of strategy and team is how I spent my time before. It's even more how I spend my time now. Where do we need to go? And a lot of that is learning from outside people. Where are other industries going? Where are other companies going? So we have done a lot more establishing, non-competitive partnerships to be able to share those things and help, friends in the industry. And I think that's really cool. So, that's certainly a big part of how I spend my time. The way I think about priorities is 100% based on our company's priorities. So our big initiatives like Winning in Skin, Conscious Beauty at Ulta Beauty, which we launched in the pandemic year in October, was one of those future-focused things that we were like, we can't slow down, we have to keep going. Those are the types of things that I spend my time and focus on. Big campaigns. We also launched Where Dreams Begin in August. So it was, a year that was no rest for the weary. So big campaigns, big initiatives. And my job is really to connect the dots. And it's to work across the leadership team. So I'll get back to that because that was one of your questions in there. And to be able to help people make things bigger, clearer, better, so that guidance that I'm providing, at key milestones along the way for all of those initiatives is really how I spend my time. And then team building. When I think about the crux of what we need to do, I think about the strength of the marketing team, the strength of the marketing team's relationships within the company. Those kinds of things are just key foundation for us. So that's a lot of how I spend my time. So go ahead.
I was going to say, when you say team building there, my mind instantly jumps to recruiting. Like I had a question. I was like, I want to ask her about this part of the recruiting process. But then you dove into like, no, this is about building cross-functional relationships and about like growing the existing team rather than recruiting. That's, it's just, I don't know. It's fun when somebody surprises you with an answer. Anyways, keep going.
I mean, that has been even more important. Honestly, the understanding, the empathy, the insight of the team through 2020. And I spent a lot of time with individual teams. Then in January, we had a major rethink, restructure, organizational change. And since that time, I've been even more focused on spending time with individual teams, doing a couple things. One, helping them envision where we're going and why we made the changes that we did. And two, getting their input and getting their insight and their ideas and their understanding as we shape the future of marketing at Ulta Beauty together. So, back to how I spend my time, I mean, that's a huge focus of mine. And if you look at my calendar over the last couple months, those individual team meetings and then individual one-on-ones have been really, really important. And those are the kinds of things that are, I think so key to the incredible culture that we've created. Again, back to Mary's legacy and the importance of that to Dave and why that's going to be, a very seamless transition. And then, back to your question on other functions, going to market is not, it's not a solo sport.
No.
It's not like it's marketing. And no, we've got the digital team, we've got the merchandising team. I mentioned the store teams. These teams and being on the same page are really, really important. And, my relationship and work across my peers and with our leadership team to do even more this has been my mantra over the past year: simplification, prioritization, decisiveness, clarity. And, last year, 365 days ago, I wrote those words on a piece of paper and put them up on the wall. And that has been my focus within my team. And then I really doubled down on how I do that across the leadership team with my peers. So that's, that's a lot of how I spend my time too. And I want us to be, as leaders in the organization, I want us to be a united front, being able to give the teams, prioritization, simplification, decisiveness, and clarity. So that's that's kind of how I spend my time in a nutshell.
That makes sense. Sounds like a lot, to say the least. I love that idea. I mean, like all of those words, the thing that runs through my mind is focus. I think focus is incredibly difficult to do because there are always, there's always this shiny new object. There's always more that you can do. There's always more budget you can spend, obviously, as a CMO. So being able to be focused is super critical, particularly during difficult times. Like, how do we condense this down into the 2 or 3 things that are the most important so that everybody can row in the right direction? So I want to spend some time, because the people that are going to be listening to this podcast are going to be primarily brands, right? It's going to be brands that, want to know, that are either in Ulta and want to know more about what your vision is for the future, or smaller brands that are making the decision between, staying direct to consumer or going retail or going to different retailers. Do I go to Ulta or do I go to Target or do I go to Sephora? So I'd love to just really dive into that topic of your relationship with the brands and how you think about that from a marketing perspective. Because I know that, having a reputation as a brand builder is pretty critical. So maybe high level, before I go into the specific questions, how do you think about your relationship with the brands from a marketing perspective? And then how do you interact with them to kind of co-market yourself?
Well, first of all, we don't think of them as vendors. We think about them as brand partners. They really are partners. We think about ourselves, and brands think about us as a place for growth. We've had an unbelievable growth story.
Yeah, for sure.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
When brands look around and survey the landscape, it's pretty clear that Ulta Beauty is a place for brands to grow. And second, I would say I'm very proud, back to a data point, I'm very proud that we are the #1 preferred brand partner. McKinsey actually did a study last year to understand our brand's perceptions. And when asked, who they most want to partner with, we were the number one on that list.
That's cool.
Versus any other retailer across all the retailers that you mentioned and so many more. That means a lot to us because, back to how we operate as a team, partnership, collaboration, focus, vision, understanding, empathy, all of those things come to life in our partnerships with our brands. And that's a big piece of why they want to work with us. And then the second thing, I would say is back to the growth idea. We've done so much over the past 5-6 years to establish how we take brands to market. So think about big brand launches like KVD Vegan Beauty, Beekman 1802. We're in the middle of our Alicia Keys Soul Care launch. The way we've been able to take these brands to market and make a big splash and make them successful has grown and grown as a key muscle of ours now. The second thing I would say is really ramping up ways for brands to invest with us and use our data to make their marketing dollars and ours more successful. Back to performance marketing and return on ad spend. This is an area where because we have 30 plus million guests and we have their beauty spend across categories, across price points, across products and services, the ability for us to be able to target in the digital and social space and partner with our brands to be able to do that is really unparalleled. So that's been a really exciting piece, and we're really going to ramp that opportunity up for the brands this year. The last thing I would say is our big tentpole events, like 21 Days of Beauty, which just started yesterday, is a great opportunity for us to showcase a lot of the hero brands and so many more. We have 21 Days of Beauty, we have Gorgeous Hair event, Love Your Skin event, all these tentpole events that our guests love, and they're looking for new products, hero products, and that's their kind of time of exploration. Actually, I'll mention one more because it's particularly important. When we think about smaller brands and how we nurture smaller brands, we've crafted multiple platforms to be able to do that. One is Sparked at Ulta Beauty, which we launched about 2.5 years ago. And that really is to take these digitally native, up and coming brands and give them space in the store, space on the site, and really bring their stories to life so that we can, we can be the nurturers of these baby brands. Yep. And the last one I'd say is, we've really doubled down in the last year on our focus on Black-owned brands and bringing those amazing brands and founders to life. And it includes, going all the way to, at the end of January, launching our Muse platform, which stands for Magnify, Uplift, Support, and Empower. And it's 100% focused on celebrating Black voices in beauty. So I'm excited about that, that way that we bring brands in and bring them to the world. So 100% growth partner, and I'm really proud of how we've built our reputation as the place for brands to come and grow.
Yeah. Everybody loves growth, right? You don't have to be profitable. You don't have to. That's the statement of the day.
Everybody loves growth.
Everybody loves growth. It's always better to be growing than not growing, right? Let's talk about that. So what are what's going to drive the growth for Ulta for the next, I'm going to do long timeline, 10 years. Next 10 years, what are going to be the growth stories for Ulta? Because, I would assume eventually you run out of new places to put stores, right? Within the US at least. So what are the big growth stories for you guys over the next decade?
Yeah. Well, I'll maybe think 3 to 5 years out because
now
5 years. Now 10 years. Now when anybody says 10 years, it feels a little like,
Who knows? We might not even have stores in 10 years. Yeah, okay.
What that's going to look like. But, multiple pieces. I mean, definitely a lot of what's happened is here to stay. So, being able to shop anywhere, shop anytime. So we see a lot of runway with things like curbside, direct to home delivery, buy online, pick up in store. Then I'll shift to the idea of what we're doing right now, which is connecting virtually. So, a lot of room in thinking about how we develop out content platforms, shoppable content platforms, how we continue to use our, virtual try-on Glam Lab, which, we launched before 2020, and it became critically important in 2020, especially when stores were closed. But even when stores opened, testers looked and still look very different.
Yep.
And the way our team has ramped that up has been incredible. We've got 12 times the engagement that we did before the pandemic. We had 11 million shades tried on in 2020. So that just shows you the engagement. We've got more than 7,000 products on there, and we're adding 500 every week. So the team has just...
Well, the insider baseball I have on that is I listened to your other podcast from October. I think you were either 6 or 8x engagement. So continues to go up.
Doubled that now. So those types of innovations, and I'll mention Skin Advisor too. The ability to explore, play, and get guidance virtually is something that's going to be critically important over the next few years. You mentioned stores. We still think the stores are the heart of where beauty happens. I mean, the fact that people are back in the stores, just showcases that. Like, people are ready to experience beauty and, see things in person again. And we do think there's still runway for growth in the number of stores. Also, our Target partnership is
haven't even talked about that yet.
that's part of our omni-channel strategy. It's another point of distribution. They've obviously got unbelievable traffic and have really come out strong out of the pandemic year as an essential retailer that people absolutely love. So I'm excited about that growth, and we'll open 100 or so of those in the back half of this year, with many, many more to come. Excited about the experience that we're bringing together there. I think it's going to be a very innovative, upscale approach, and the power of our loyalty programs with our over 30 million, they're over 70 million. So 100 million guests between the two of us to be able to reach those beauty lovers in a new way is pretty incredible. I think there will be many more, innovative partnerships to come. And then, innovation in our e-com business as we think about the shift there. So, the stores and the e-com business play a big role together. They always have, and that continues to evolve. So I think, being able to support that and really innovate in that space, we're really proud of the app that we have, and the teams have done so much amazing work on that over the last couple of years. So we've got, amazing content, easy shoppability, Glam Lab, Skin Advisor, there's a huge amount of runway in all of those spaces for us to be able to continue to cement our leadership and our growth story. People still love beauty. Which is fantastic.
Whether they're at home or they're at work, they still love it.
They do.
And I actually, I did some investigation into the app. It was 800,000 reviews, 5.0 out of 5.0. It's pretty good in terms of and actually, I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. So, functionally, this is a quick question. Does digital report directly into you, or is it a separate group that reports into Dave, or how does that work?
Yeah, my peer Prama Bhatt leads the digital e-com team. So they're responsible for that, and then I have within my creative team, digital creative and product development. So that team works, hand in hand. We work hand in hand with Prama and her team to be able to bring that to life.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean it's when you started your career in marketing, right? digital was, starting to be a thing, but it's not like it is today. And it's kind of wild for me to think about, as somebody that, runs like a kind of a pure technology company, how much technology there is in a company like Ulta, right? That you guys have gone out, acquired companies that are technology based, that you've got an app that's got integrated, AR, AR technology, which is super cool. It's just such a different skill set that I think you had to have when Procter and Gamble first came around. It's just really cool to see.
I agree. I was just thinking about that, Connor, a couple weeks ago, because, even my early days at Quaker, when we were launching a new product, it would be, you had only a certain number of levers you could pull. You could do like a coupon in the grocery store. You could do floor talker in the grocery store. You could do an ad. You could maybe do radio. You could do an insert in the newspaper. I mean, you just didn't have.
There's you have 6 levers. Decide which ones you want to do, and okay, 20 to 25% here, and
exactly. You put together a plan and take it to leadership, and it's like, that's an amazing plan. And now I love it so much more because it's so much more dynamic. And there are always new tools, and now what's the role of TikTok, and what's and other emerging platforms, and we're doing live streaming, and the idea that all of this would be where we were going is probably would have been surreal to us 15 years ago.
Yeah, totally.
But the content centricity and the idea that as much as we are data and technology, creativity and ideas are more meaningful than ever before. So, just we try to remind ourselves that internally too, is in this era of AI and data centricity, ideas and creativity are still king.
I think they're more king than they used to be because, now there's so much out there. It's I remember watching the Super Bowl and the people watching it were kind of I don't know, didn't love the ads, right? They were okay, but that was kind of part of the reason you tuned in. And I remember it was somebody on Twitter was I don't think it's that the ads got any worse. It's I think our expectations of content have just gotten higher, right? When I go into TikTok, I laugh out loud for 40 minutes. I can't, that's just hard to replicate that because so many more people are allowed to be creative now that it's raised the collective game. And so, yeah, I'm so aligned with that.
Right. And think about how many times a week, I know we're like this, you're sharing a TikTok with, your family and friends because it's so funny and so clever.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's where we are with content.
Yeah. Well, I want to hit 2 big topics before we go into the fun end of show questions. One is Target. We'll get to that because I want to talk about that. That's a huge deal, right? It's a very, very non-traditional thing to do. And then the first one, though, just so that we make sure we get to it, because the people that listen to this are pretty interested in influencer marketing. So I want to hear your perspective on the influencer marketing space and what your approach has been over time. Because again, in the data that we saw, you guys did better than a lot of your peers, or you did better than all of the peers that we tracked that weren't essential retailers, meaning they got to stay open during that time. So what are some of your philosophies? How have you approached the space?
Yeah, the way we've approached it has really changed over the past few years, and we try things and then we adjust. And I think we as a team continually think about amplification, which is the reach that influencers have, but engagement more and more, which is that true connection and people really wanting to connect with that influencer and trusting that influencer, which is big, right? A lot's happened in the beauty landscape with influencers over the past few years. It's kind of been, a drama. And then, content and true creation. So there are people that might not have the amplification or even the engagement, but back to your point about the creativity of content. So we kind of look at all 3 of those layers and have an influencer strategy at all 3. And then the other thing that I would say is, a year ago we launched the Ulta Beauty Collective, which is a portfolio of influencers that we work with on a consistent basis for a whole year. And that gives us the ability to really create much more of a relationship with them, be able to have them create content over the course of time, whether it's for a tentpole event or a big initiative like skin or conscious beauty. And it really gives us that kind of longevity and horizontal view with them, which has been extremely powerful. And not only have they been great for us to make connections with consumers, they give us a lot of insight back in. So they're almost like a kind of a mini advisory panel back in to us, because they are so close to our guest. And that's really been fantastic. So we just kicked off our second year of the Ulta Beauty Collective, and that's been really great. And then the other thing we do, speaking of amplification, is when we do go into these tentpole events like 21 Days of Beauty, we add there. And then the last thing I would say is things have evolved in the type of influencer. It was very makeup artist focused in the early days, and there's definitely a huge role for amazing makeup artist influencers. And also, we think about skinfluencers and broader lifestyle and how beauty fits within that. And that's been, a big evolution for us as well. And, I think it mimics our evolution as a brand as well. In the early days, when we were trying to cement all things beauty all in one place, it was very important for us to have influencer partnerships with makeup artists. And now, as we, have really evolved into our possibilities purpose platform, this idea of a much bigger role in people's lives, with influencers who have a much wider kind of span and purview, has been part of the evolution in parallel. So excited about where this is headed. I mean, this is a space, speaking of TikTok, that continues to change. You've got new kind of like QVC live streaming apps popping up. I mean, this is just gonna, like I mentioned, the idea of things changing faster than ever before is kind of here to stay.
For sure.
Influencer space and the intersection with social media and other ways of bringing that to life is no exception. It's going to change really, really fast. Yeah,
it's kind of the best feature of it, but also the thing that makes it most difficult, I think. I remember thinking 2 years ago, I'm like, well, it's just going to be Google and Facebook. It's like, oh, no, not really, right? So, yeah. Well, let's hit the last one, and then we'll do. I'm going to limit it to one fun end of show question. I don't know if you're going to like it, but we're going to do it. So let's talk Ulta Target for like 5 minutes. So from my perspective, super interesting. I mean, I think that if you think about kind of the role that Target plays as being like a curator, being elevates, right? It's not just a retailer. They've got specialized sections of the store that each try to. It's just a really cool experience. And as well as being like, they have a sizable beauty business. So to, hand that over or to give space to somebody else is a big deal, right? Particularly, not necessarily a competing retailer, but kind of a competing retailer. And so that's, that in and of itself is a really big deal. And then for you guys, your background or your focus on being the kind of beauty guru, right? Or having that beauty expertise and bringing that to the table, that's got to be a big part of it. But then also, I'm assuming that this kind of came about during the pandemic when, hey, like having exposure in an essential retailer is obviously beneficial for us if anything like this comes back again. And so it's just a fascinating topic. So, starting at the top, what are some of the considerations that you have to think about now that you guys have decided to do it? Like, how much interaction are you doing with the Target team? How do you think about supporting them, but also supporting yourself? Like, talk to me about that dynamic.
I mean, we are so excited about the partnership. And, so you start with two brands that have very similar DNA when you think about authenticity and trust with consumers.
There's so much alignment. You know what I mean? It just feels right.
So much. And that's why consumers, I mean, when we announced it, you go look at like the Instagram responses, it was like, two of my favorites.
That had to be a really exciting time that day. Be like, hey guys, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Totally. Yeah. And then you throw Starbucks in there because, you know, beauty lovers were like, Target, Starbucks, and Ulta Beauty. This is a dream come true.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's awesome. You know, I think you mentioned our beauty expertise, and you know, consumers look at us as the number one beauty destination. Particular strength with Gen Z, up and coming beauty lovers. And, you know, we're seen as number one in hair, makeup, and skin. I mean, this is something that we bring uniquely into the Target space. Target has been doing a great job with their beauty department and their beauty growth. So this just takes it to the next level for them. Being able to bring in a lot of prestige, iconic brands into the Target space for the first time under this, you know, curated and elevated Ulta Beauty experience is what is really special. We'll have those iconic brands. We'll have curated discovery zones. We're going to have a Target team member that's trained by Ulta Beauty in beauty.
Yep.
That's going to staff that 100% of the time. So it's going to be, you know, a highly interactive, human connected experience, which is really exciting. To your question of, you know, the interworkings of the teams, yes, we have established at all levels great working relationships with the Target team to really bring the best of both worlds together. You know, this is why this, you know, it's like, to people, and then, oh yeah, you know, it's kind of their reaction. Like, it totally makes sense that these two powerhouses would come together. So now it's just us kind of working the fine tuning that. We're working on how we express the proposition. We're finalizing what the store environment is going to look like. We're finalizing what training of the associates are going to look like. Our brand partners are such a key piece of this, and they are really excited about the partnership, and they're really excited to help make that work. And all of that's kind of setting up new processes. Like, we're working with Ulta Beauty and Target. How does that work? So, you know, that's all the kind of the inner working of what we're working through right now. But, you know, not only are we two brands that, you know, from a brand standpoint to consumers feel like we are simpatico, we're also like that as to internal teams. And, you know, feel like we share a lot of the same values of how we collaborate and how we think about the business. So I'm really proud of how our teams have been working through that together. We're making tremendous amount of progress, and we're really excited to launch it at the back half of this year, get people in the store. We really believe that this creates an ecosystem, a stronger beauty ecosystem, you know, back and forth from Target to Ulta Beauty. So that's, you know, that's where I think it's really special.
It seems fantastic. Well, let's do rapid fire, the last one. I'll tell you, my biggest trepidation coming into this podcast was during an interview you mentioned that you guys played a lot of cards during the pandemic, but that you don't like playing cards. And I have to tell you, being one of the most competitive people I know, that was I almost shut down the interview. So why? I love cards. So tell me why do you not like cards?
Oh my gosh! The fact that you're bringing this, the fact that you're bringing this up for the question. My husband, after I had said that, I think I said that in a podcast, and I think I said it in an interview. Yeah. And he's like, "Why do you have to tell everyone you don't like playing cards?" So he's gonna love that you brought this up. Okay, so in a nutshell, I didn't really grow up playing cards.
Yeah.
Maybe Uno. Uno's the one exception. Like, we played a lot of Uno growing up, but I didn't really play cards growing up. But my husband's family are huge card players.
So they
play for are like I don't mind sitting down for an hour and playing cards, but they will play for like 6 hours. And I'm like...
So it's an in-law thing. I know that. I've had that happen where it's like, I'll tell you, they're gonna kill me. I'm in their house right now. My in-laws love hiking. And so, so I went on a hike and my wife loves hiking. So I went on a hike with my wife, and it was like, it was like a 8-9 mile hike. And then, all their birthdays are in March. So it's like, okay, so then we're going on another hike. And it was like a 4-hour hike. And like, oh, just wait for next week. It's going to be even more. And I'm like, I like hiking a little bit. I don't need to hike for 4 hours every weekend. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'll do an hour or two. Like, I'm good. Come back. Anyways, let's give it a wrap. I really appreciate it, Shelley. Thanks so much for taking the time out. I know I learned a lot today. I'm sure everybody else did too. And good luck in the next few years. Congrats on surviving the last 365 days. What a cool kind of slice in time for us to be doing this. And just really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. Bye, Shelley.
Bye, Conor.
Hit subscribe now. Earned by Tribe Dynamics. Tribe Dynamics unlocks your social media influencer community. Our platform not only tracks and measures your best influencer relationships, but discovers new influencers to grow your business through earned media. Get started with a demo today at tribedynamics.com. tribedynamics.com.